Welcome to this session of the Ancestral Healing Summit. I'm Lisa Bonis, your host, and my guest for this session is Michael Stone. Our topic today is breathwork and ancestral healing. In 2009, Michael Stone began facilitating holotropic breathwork workshops for thousands of people in the Los Angeles area. And then, in 2018, he birthed NeuroDynamic Breathwork, also known as NDB, in order to achieve his vision of allowing anybody in the world that wants to experience the benefits of expanded states of awareness to be able to do so from the comfort of their own home. And he's here with us today. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is a topic that's very near and dear to me, so I'm very happy to be able to share with your group.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to diving in here because I understand that you've got a bit of a family history. If you would share that story with us, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, both of my parents are German Jews, and we're in my family ancestors were in Germany for hundreds of years, up until the 1930s and 40s when the Nazis took power, and they were really ensconced in the society. Like my grandfather on my mother's side got the Iron Cross Award in World War I for having saved a bunch of lives, and it's one of the highest honors they can give. One of my ancestors saved the village when Napoleon came, back a longer time ago, because he was the rich guy in town, and Napoleon was going to burn it to the ground, and he paid the money to go around and not destroy the town. And so they were really deeply ensconced. Like my grandfather had a newspaper that had been in the family for 50 years that was very successful, and then almost from one day to the next, when the Nazis came to power, they had to run for their lives. And, like for my mother, who was a child at that point, she was going to school, she had all her friends, and all of a sudden, almost from one day to the next, her friends wouldn't even talk to her anymore. And when she would walk by, they'd start throwing rocks at her because her parents were telling her, Jews aren't even real people. They're causing all these problems in society, that kind of thing. And so, my grandfather basically just made the decision that they had to leave. He saw the handwriting on the wall. So he had to leave everything there, everything that they'd, built over their entire lives and their ancestors had built, just leave it all behind and, come to the United States. And on my father's side, he was also a German Jew, and his mother, his father had died many years earlier, but his mother was there, and she was also in the same situation. Except she had a very difficult decision to make in that she couldn't really leave right away in the late 30s. There were some things that she had to take care of first. So she had to send my father to the United States ahead of her. So he ended up in this kind of boys' home for a bit of time. And so she had to send him there, not really knowing for sure if she would ever see him again, if she could really get out ultimately. But she ultimately did. And then my father and my mother, met here obviously and got married and had me and my sister. But yes, I think, some of that actually kind of like was inherited with me, the whole energy around that story. And it was one of the things that I actually worked on and healed during my breathwork journeys.
Oh, that is such a heartbreaking story. Thank you so much for sharing it. I hope you don't mind if I ask, how did these events affect you as the child of these children who were affected by these events that I'm sure they couldn't begin to understand? They just knew life got real scary real fast, and suddenly you don't belong anymore. You have to go someplace else. How did their experiences affect you as you were growing up?
Well, one of the primary impacts on me, and it's kind of interesting because I wasn't even aware of this. This is a lot of it is unconscious, stuff that you pick up or you make decisions when you're a child, 5 or 6 years old, that you don't remember later on, but that they impact your life. And when I heard these stories, when I was like, 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years old, I made an unconscious decision that the world is an unsafe place. And it wasn't even, like my parents didn't tell me that, they were just kind of telling me these stories of what they'd gone through. But that was like my little 6-year-old's, decision, in terms of, how life worked, what it was about. And, as a result, that really impacted my entire life growing up and getting older, and caused a tremendous amount of problems in any area where I had to open up and be vulnerable. But I could never figure out why I was having so many problems in those areas. And it was kind of like I was very good at stuff that had to do with kind of thinking mind, like, business stuff and that type of thing. But in any area, like for instance, in relationships, complete disaster. But I never knew what was at the bottom of it, till I ultimately, and that's part of kind of like my breathwork story, till that kind of was revealed to me during during my breathwork session. But I was trying and trying and trying and trying to figure out what I was doing wrong. I'm going, I'm a smart kid. I can figure this out. It's like I can figure everything out. I'm successful. I'm a straight A student. I'm great at math and science. I can figure this thing out with the relationships too, but obviously I couldn't. So that was one of the biggest impacts that it had in my life. But I was unaware that it was completely unconscious for the vast majority of my life.
Let's go ahead and talk about how you got into breath work, because it appears that there's a connection here.
Yes. So, it's kind of a continuation of that story in a sense, that I was growing up. I wanted to have a life just like my parents. I thought, I saw them interacting with each other in a very loving way. They had 2 kids. We had a very normal childhood. There wasn't much trauma involved or anything like that. And so, I want to be just like them, that kind of thing. And again, all this is unconscious. It's like not something that I was consciously making a decision about. So I got into the sciences because that's what my dad was in, and I was very good at that. And I also got into business, had a graduate degree in business from University of Southern California, and got a great job and was moving around the country getting promotions. But again, I was like a total failure in relationships, and I couldn't figure it out. And it's like, what I ultimately came to the conclusion was that I just hadn't met the right person yet. And, that's like a conclusion from a person who hasn't done their inner work. So, which is where I was at that point. I just wasn't in that space yet. So, and what I didn't realize at that point was that there was only one common denominator in all these relationships, and it wasn't the other person. It was me. So clearly the issue was with me, not the other people, if I'd have been able to go deeper at that point. But I kept thinking, if I keep trying, eventually this will work. And so I kept trying and trying and trying. And, because of my conditioning around the world as an unsafe place, I would get to a certain point in the relationship, and it was usually anywhere from 3 to 4 months or 5 months or whatever, where it started getting deeper. And at a certain point, fear would kick in and I just kind of shut down. And the other person would sense that, the woman I was with, and they would get incredibly frustrated because, they wanted to be in a real relationship where, where I was authentic and vulnerable and was connecting with them. And so ultimately it would end in generally a very dramatic way, where the woman was very upset with me, and I couldn't figure out why. I was going, well, I'm not doing anything. So it was like this cycle that I was in, and I couldn't figure out how to get out of it, this loop. And then at a certain point, I met a woman that I wanted to date, but she was still in, or like living with her ex-boyfriend. And I said, how am I going to get her out of the house so I can really see if maybe this is the one, maybe this is it. And at a certain point, she wanted to go down to South America. And so I said, oh, sure, let's go for a week. At least I'll see if maybe we're a good match. So we went down there. And one of the things that happened was we went out in the rainforest we went out with a local shaman. It was really like an adventure, and like a canoe ride, and it was really out in the middle of nowhere in this land that had been preserved on the Amazon, so it would be protected, the rainforest. And so this shaman on the first evening goes, would you guys like to participate in a religious ceremony? And so I'm going, well, what is it? I never just say yes to stuff like that. I'm a science guy. So, and so he goes, well, it's very simple. I go out into the rainforest and get these leaves and these vines. I bring them back. I put them in this big pot. I boil them up and you drink it. So, my initial reaction is forget about that. It's like, in engineering, I was in chemical engineering, you mix 0.52 grams of this point, you don't like drink a witch's brew in the middle of nowhere where the people you're with don't even speak English. There's just a translator and a 4-hour canoe ride from anywhere. That's just not done. And so I was ready to tell him, forget it. But this woman I was with goes, oh, we have to do this. This sounds amazing. This will be an adventure. So I had this like battle in my brain at that point, this logical, rational mind, which had run my life up until then, on one side, and on the other side going, oh, you're all the way down here for a week, and you want to really see if this woman could be the one. And if you don't say yes, you look like a total wimp. That's the end. You've wasted your whole week, your whole time down here. And it was really one of the first times in my life that I'd really gone with a spontaneous, decision. I said, all right, go for it. If I die in the rainforest, at least it's a beautiful place. I've had a great life, whatever, let's just do it. So, and it turned out to be ayahuasca, which I'd never heard of at that point. I didn't know anything about, expanded states of awareness or plant medicine or anything like that. And I had an experience where it was really the first time that I really felt connected to the world. And that, maybe the world is a safe place. Maybe I don't have to be so vulnerable and protective. And so it was a very profound experience for me. And, when I got back, I said, okay, this is science mind again. If I can have that kind of experience with a substance, the receptors are there in my brain. I'm not going down to Peru every week to do this. It's like, there has to be a way to access these amazing states without substances, in a more natural way. So I kind of went on a search, and that's what ultimately brought me to breathwork. I tried a bunch of stuff, shamanism and this and that, but it ultimately brought me to breathwork. But there was like many types of breath work. And the one I was really tuned into was holotropic breath work, because it was developed by a psychiatrist, and he developed it scientifically. All the other kinds were, oh, I downloaded it from the universe, that kind of stuff. I was having a hard time with that. But with holotropic breath work, Dr. Groff had worked for many years with psychedelic therapy back in the day, when they were trying to see if there was any therapeutic use for it, and gotten these amazing results from these expanded states of awareness, where people would have these breakthroughs, where he'd worked with them for years in talk therapy and hadn't been able to break through their defenses. And just being in this more open space, they were able to release and connect with their inner being more in a way that they shifted their lives in just a few sessions. And when it was banned, that was when he kind of went on a journey to try to develop some other modality where people could have these same healing experiences. And so he studied traditional societies, he studied modern consciousness theory, and then ultimately what he saw was that the common threads where people had put themselves into these states were some kind of sound and something with the breath. Like, for instance, in shamanic societies, they use rattling and drumming. And even in Buddhist meditation, it's watching the breath. So he set out and went to Esalen and started practicing and with groups to see what was the most powerful way in a one-day setting to mix these things up in order for people to dive as deeply as possible into these types of experiences. And that's where holotropic breathwork was birthed, so to speak. And so I said, oh, this is for me. This is, so I tried it and had the first couple sessions were also very, very powerful for me. One of them was very similar to my ayahuasca experience. One of them was a bit different. But at that point, I made a decision, okay, I'm going to go through this 2.5-year certification program so that I can provide these experiences for other people too. And one of the first breakthroughs I had was with this thing with relationships, where I actually went back to my childhood, and I was back in that moment when I made that decision, the world is an unsafe place. And at that moment, it opened up a whole new reality for me. Where I saw was this had nothing to do with anybody else. It had nothing to do with the women I was with. This is a result of A, like the stuff that I had genetically inherited, and B, this decision that a 6-year-old child had made. And when I came out of that experience, it's just like I was like a different person. I'm going, you know what? I don't want to have a 6-year-old child run my life. Because it was very important for me to have a relationship. It was like, it was part of what I thought, was meant to be for me in this lifetime, to have a successful relationship. So, once I could bring that to consciousness, I could start to work with it. And, before I was just in a loop because I had no idea what was going on. But once I saw this kind of ancestral, stuff that was kind of being brought up in me, running my life unconsciously, I could start to work with it in relationships. And it wasn't something that like healed immediately. It's never like that. It's like if you've had something you've been doing for 45 years, you have to integrate and you have to start working with it. But when I was in relationships, I came from a totally different perspective, because when I hit that wall, instead of just pulling back, I was just very open and authentic with the other person and said, this is what's happening. This is coming up for me, but I want to work on this with you. And it just completely shifted the relationship, because instead of like pulling us apart, it deepened our relationship. And the other person was just incredibly honored that I was trusting them to try to be more vulnerable, to be more open, and to dive deeper in. And so, my relationship started to unfold. And then now ultimately, now I'm in a 10-year relationship that's amazing, which would have been impossible before. Even at one point I got married, it lasted for about 6 months. That was it. So it really completely shifted my life in a very, very profound way in the area, not only of just relationships, but it's starting to look inside and do my inner work to see, well, if this works in this area, there's other areas that I'm sure I'm also have these blocks in, and started to just have these other breakthroughs in my life too.
Wow, that's an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to let people know that you were talking about Dr. Stanislav Grof and his holotropic breathwork. So in case anybody wants to Google that. So I love how you were able to tie this whole thing in with this ancestral pattern, this stuckness. Is this for people who are wanting to look into their own ancestral healing work? Do you think that this is something that could work for others as well?
Absolutely. And it's kind of like in the breath work that, I was originally in holotropic, and then I, as you said in the beginning, I developed my own style of breath work. And part of the reason for that is because holotropic has to be done in person. It has to be done with, facilitators there on mats in large venues. And I really wanted to allow more people to experience it. I was getting such amazing benefits. And ultimately, that's what kind of drove me to make it work online and to create a new modality that could be done effectively so that anybody in the world could experience it, if they just had an internet connection. So.
Right. Yeah, you're right. The holotropic breathwork, the training is in person. It's very intense, et cetera. So I'm glad that you've moved to find something that can replace it. Maybe that's not the right wording, but
it's not really replace it, because for people who want to have a very deep, profound in-person breathwork experience, holotropic breathwork is great. And if they have a day, because it's a day experience, it's 10 hours, and it's in person, so you've got to get to where you're going, and then be there for a day, and then get back to where you started from. And it's amazing stuff, and I totally recommend it. This is what I developed, NeuroDynamic Breathwork. It's for two things. One is for people who, for instance, have a busy life and they can just take a couple hours out of their day to get a breathwork experience. They can do that. They can do it from their bedroom. They can do it from their house and just kind of take a couple hours out of their day. And I do 20 live sessions every month, so I do it almost every day. Versus in the holotropic, I can only do 4 or 5 a year, because it's a lot of work to put those on, with the admin, with the getting the venue and all that kind of thing. So it's just more available, and it's easier to access, and it's also much more inexpensive. because I can
Right.
do it online. Obviously, I can keep the cost down to very little.
Right. Well, what were some of the other benefits that you've received from this healing process?
Well, from this ancestral healing, it opened up a new way of being for me, which I could have never anticipated before. And it's kind of like, from your ancestors. It isn't just what I saw was I wasn't just picking up stuff that had to be healed, stuff that was blocking me. I was also picking up things that were their strong traits, that were their strengths. Everything comes down to it. But if you block one, you block the other. It's kind of like emotions. Like you can't block the negative emotions and still fully feel the positive emotions. So what I saw was, once I really accepted this kind of ancestral, like work with this ancestral healing from this kind of, I don't feel safe in the world is an unsafe place, it opened up this whole new arena where I was starting to really be able to download and use in my life my parents and my grandparents, my ancestral strengths. And so I started to more be able to embody those. And there's so many. It's just like, the courage that it took for them to kind of leave their country. And just breathe for a second. And the strength of character that they had. Like my mother was just this amazing woman who just wanted to give to other people and to support them in being self-empowered and finding what they wanted to do in their lives. And she had this ability for people to feel safe with her. And so all those things I started to download and to start be able to, embody and use in my life. And it changed my life in so many ways. I can't even describe it. But if I hadn't have opened myself up to having my ancestral strengths available to me also, I could never have done online breath work, because I really developed the skill set where people feel safe with me online. You have to feel safe or you won't open up and really access these deep things that want to come up and be processed and released. So, just from starting to get into breath work and opening up this thing that had been blocking me, it was like all these other things, they were inside of me, from my genetics, but they were like seeds and I just never watered them. And now I was starting to water them and they started to blossom like these amazing, beautiful flowers that I was able to kind of bring forth into the world. So, and that's just from this one kind of series of experiences with ancestral healing. But some of the other experiences that people have is that, and myself also, is that many times when we have emotions, especially when we're younger children, and we block them because we don't feel safe in feeling them at that time, and many times we aren't safe feeling them. We don't have the resources like we have as an adult. So it's perfectly normal thing to kind of suppress them into our body, but we also suppress these kind of bioenergetic blocks in our body too. And that's true as we grow older also. So one of the things that happens in breath work is people start to move and release these kind of tensions in their body, and through getting hot, through getting cold, and their body's releasing all this stuff that's blocking it from doing what it's really supposed to do, which is having this body energy be there for us to have us feel vibrant and alive and get up feeling great. Not we're getting up and we can't wake up. Where's my coffee kind of thing, because our body's spending so much energy fighting through these blockages. So people get these releases, and through sounds and movement also, like releasing sound is an incredibly effective way to release the stuff that's stuck in our bodies. Sometimes people have visuals. For me, it's like 25% of the time where they actually go back into their past and they see things, but they see things from a different perspective. Not from the child's perspective, which is kind of what's in our unconscious thinking, but from an adult's perspective, where they see it from a different angle. They broaden their perspective so that they can see it in a way where, you know what? I learned something from that experience. I can take something away from it. It wasn't just this like, difficult experience that I had to go through and I'm damaged from it or whatever. I can learn something from this, and really hold it in a completely different space. Sometimes people feel like they go back to past lives and get releases from things that happen in what they at least visualize as past life experiences. Sometimes they go back to the birth process, which is an incredibly stressful experience for anybody, from having to push through the birth canal and Dr. Groff has an amazing theory about that, about the birth matrices and that type of thing. So all of those experiences, are available in breathwork. But the important thing is that in the types of breathwork that I do, that the experience is brought up by a person's own inner guiding intelligence. So they're the ones who are bringing up the experience from their own, some people call it a higher self or connection to source, however people see it. It's like we really do have all the answers inside, but we're very blocked from that, from this constant ego chit-chat mind that's constantly there, that's kind of drowning out this quiet, beautiful inner voice. And through breath work, it's just really just deeper breathing, a little faster than normal to music. The ego mind is quieted down. And part of it is psychological, where you're giving yourself permission to release. Part of it is physiological, just from breathing more deeply. There's some changes that happen in your body. Your blood gets more alkaline, and those changes support the kind of quieting of the ego mind, where you can actually drop into this inner knowing. And that's what brings the experience up. So it's not like you're guiding the experience, or your ego mind is, I want to work with ancestral healing. It's like you go in and open yourself up to whatever wants to happen. It's really a modality of surrender, which is not easy for some people, including me. I'm very left brain oriented. That was like the first session or so. Oh my God, it's so hard just to let go. And it's a beautiful life practice. So like to be able to let go more in life, and to be more present in the moment and just be with what is. And people can bring that back out also. So, and you just let whatever wants to happen, happen. Many times things have to happen in a certain order. First, you need some body releases before you go into some of the ancestral stuff or this or that. And it's just trusting that your body knows, this inner guiding intelligence knows exactly what is ready to be processed. So you can be confident that when it comes up, you're capable of handling it. So it's not like you have to be overly concerned about, oh, this is too much for me, because it wouldn't be brought up then. And that's why you don't want to force an experience. And that's how breathwork is very different than like psychedelics or plant medicine. If you take a plant medicine, you're in for the duration. And if you feel overwhelmed, too bad, you're going through. With breathwork, we always encourage people to process through and just release it. If it's coming up, it wants to release out of your body and be fully felt. But if you ever feel totally overwhelmed, you slow down the breath, you drop out of the experience. So it's just totally safe in that way. So, so those are just some of the types of experiences people can have. And when you turn it into a practice, into like a thing that you do on a regular basis, you have a second level of benefits where you start to really feel more self-empowered. Where you start to learn, I can process through fear. I don't have to hold back in my life. I can work through this stuff. And our regular users report like getting more clarity on their purpose in life, relief from anxiety, greater self-awareness, increased ability to relax. All of those benefits, are available to people when they start doing breath work on a regular basis. And other breath works are much more directive. Mine and also holotropic is purposely non-directive and allowing people to have the experience come from within, so they start to feel more self-empowered and they get more connected to their own inner wisdom and finding the answers inside.
Wow. Now, you've been doing these sessions online for about 3 years now, right?
Yeah.
What does an online session look like?
So it's a 2-hour session, and there's 3 important parts to breathwork. There's preparation, the experience itself, and then integration. And so there's preparation beforehand. I give people new people a 7-page PDF to read through, so they get a real sense of what could happen. The first half hour of the session is an introductory talk. So for new people, whether they've read the PDF or not, because some people don't, I go through all the critical points, and what's important to remember for the session, what to expect. And then after that, I explain about the breathing technique, and then there's a 1-hour breathing session where you just close your eyes and kind of let whatever wants to happen, and just stay with the breath. And then at the end of the breathing session, there is a share group where there's people from all different countries from around the world. And there's anywhere from, in the sessions, I'd say 50 to 200 people. or 250 people. And sharing is optional, but some people just are there to hold space for the group. Other people share some stuff that came up. And the share group for many people is as powerful as the breath work itself. Just being in a community of like-minded individuals who are willing to be open and vulnerable and open their heart about what experiences they had. And it's not like chit-chat talk. It's not like your normal how is the weather kind of thing. And it's an incredibly powerful experience in that, like for me, it's inspiring to see that people are able to be how I think really they were designed to be. Like to be vulnerable, to share, to open your heart, and to have that conversation back and forth in the world, and not be in our space of anger of oh, this is horrible, this is like, or oh, what'd you have for breakfast today kind of thing. And people, it really opens their hearts, and it gives me confidence in the future of humanity when I see that there's so many people like that are willing to drop in and just be incredibly in a heart open space, and be willing to share what their experience was. And that's it. And I also talk a little bit about integration, about what things you can do to integrate the experience and embody it. We also have a bunch of blog posts on that. If people need support afterwards, we're available by email or by Zoom calls. So we make sure that there's a good support structure afterwards also.
So if people who are watching this today, if they would like to try out one of the online breathwork sessions with you, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, we offer everybody a first session for free, just so you can check it out, see if it works for you. And again, we do 20 live sessions every month, so people can choose the one they want. They just have to go to the website, which is breathworkonline.com, very simple. And there's a little button that says try a free breathwork session. And then you set up an account and just try out a session for free, and do one that works for you so that you won't be disturbed. And you want to be able to obviously listen to the music in a way where you get decent sound quality. So either over your headset or earbuds are great, or where you can turn it at a decent volume and not have it distort or glitch.
Well, would you be willing to offer, I know we can't do an entire session here, but perhaps a brief demo?
Yeah. So what I can do is I can give and again, like the music sessions are an hour, and the music is designed to do like a really kind of a deep dive so if something really needs to be released, it's fairly evocative, dynamic music. But what I can do is just do a 5 or 6 minute experience so that people can just get a sense of what it's like to breathe deeply and close your eyes and be present in your body. And just notice afterwards, does your body feel any different? Are you a little more relaxed? And it's just really like a very, very like mini taster, but we can definitely do that. So, okay, so I just need to kind of go through the breathing technique, and then we'll get started. So, and this is not a breathing technique that you would use in your everyday life. This is specifically designed for neurodynamic breathwork. And so there's a few things to remember. The first is you want to breathe in and out through your mouth, and which is you don't do in your everyday life. And there's a variety of reasons for that. One is you can move air more quickly. And you do want to move a fair amount of air, especially at the beginning of the 1 hour session, because it starts to create shifts that support the ego mind and quieting down. And also, whenever your body is in a release state, it automatically switches to mouth breathing. Most people don't notice that, but if you start crying or whatever, you'll start to mouth breathe. Or if you start getting angry, so it kind of gives your body permission to release. And the second thing is you want to take full deep breaths. So if you just to practice for a moment, if you put your hands on your belly and breathe in, your hands should get pushed out. So it's like there's this balloon expanding in the bottom of your belly, like your diaphragm's expanding, like this balloon. Like you're getting a big belly, and in terms of speed, the speed is not that important. So even just normal speed or just a little faster than normal is totally fine, but it's not like this. Like the fullness and the depth of the breath is the most important thing. And you want to breathe in a way where your body stays relaxed. So you're not tensing your body while you're breathing deeply. So you want to have a full deep breath, but an enjoyable breath that you can just do forever. It doesn't wear you out. So just like that. And breathe in a circular way. So there's no gaps between the in-breath and the out-breath. And so for this short session, you want to stay with that technique. And if it gets The last couple minutes are fairly soft, and if your breathing wants to just automatically come down to a normal rhythm and just slow down, just allow it to do so. It's totally fine at the end. So that's it. So here we go. So I'm going to just at this point, what you're going to need is, you can either do this with your eyes closed or with an eye mask on, but you want to keep your eyes closed during the entire 6 minutes. Opening your eyes really jars you out of the process. Like, your visual cortex is like 80% of your input to your brain. So you want to keep your eyes closed, and you want to, and if at this point you don't have it ready, you might just put this on pause and go grab like a headset or earbuds or something like that. Or if you're just going to use computer speakers, nice external speakers that you can, again, play music at a decent volume and can get good sound quality. And also, it's nice to have, you might have just a little water if you want to, or a couple tissues in case your face starts to sweat or something like that. And that's pretty much it. And you can do this just sitting up in a chair. It's totally fine. Some people prefer laying down. That's also fine too. So but you want to be comfortable in a comfortable space. So at this point, if you can just kind of get ready, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you through just a minute or two relaxation, get you going with the breath, and then the music will start. And during the music, again, I'm not going to say anything. This is going to be all internally guided by your own inner guiding intelligence. So you just want to stay with the breathing technique I gave you and just be with what is. So if your body wants to just sway a little bit, just let it do so. If a little bit sounds want to come out, just kind of allow whatever wants to happen. Just be with it. And so I'll get you going with the breath, and then I'll start the music. So if everyone can just, at this point, put your eye mask on or close your eyes. Just take a deep breath. Bring yourself present into your body. Bring your attention inside, letting go of anything that happened earlier today or that's going to happen later. Keeping your entire presence in your body. Just take a minute to relax your body as much as you can. Some people just like to go through body part by body part and visualize it relaxing, or a little blue or white light going through it. And so just going through your feet, your calves, your legs, and just following through every body part and relaxing it as much as you can in this moment. Belly, face, arms. You might want to wiggle your fingers around a little bit, shake your hands out, stretch your shoulders a little bit to release any tension. Just bringing your body to a place where it's as relaxed as possible in this moment. And then bringing your attention to your breath and starting to deepen the breath, starting to take full deep breaths in and out through the mouth, but keeping your body relaxed. Breathing fully and deeply, deeply and fully, fully and deeply. And now breathing in a way where there are no gaps. We're always breathing in or breathing out, just creating a wonderful circle of breath. You're keeping your body relaxed, feeling your belly expand with each in-breath, staying with the breath, staying with the breath. And already you may be feeling your consciousness change a little bit, feeling a bit more relaxed, but just noticing that and staying with the breath. And either breathing at normal pace or a little bit faster than normal, starting to feel into what feels natural for your body. And for some people, they like to make a little sound on the out breath. And if that feels natural to you, you can do that. Either way is fine. Breathing fully and deeply, deeply and fully, fully and deeply, staying with the breath, staying with the breath. And in a moment, the music will begin. And now, if you have not already done so, slowing down the breath to a normal rhythm, breathing gently, being in your body, noticing the breath going in and out of your lungs. If it feels right, sending yourself acceptance and love. Just being with yourself in a very gentle way, acknowledging yourself for the things you've gone through in your life, which has allowed you to become the person you are today. Just maybe taking one more deep breath. Some people like to put their hands on their heart for a moment just to connect with themselves for a moment. But you can do that if it feels right. And just noticing, does your body feel a little bit more relaxed? Do you feel a little bit more embodied, a more grounded space? When you're ready, you can, if you haven't already, you can open your eyes.
That was trippy. Wow, that was really, really interesting. I want to ask first, you mentioned breathe in and out of your mouth, which was difficult. I mean, I'm not naturally a mouth breather, so I had to keep reminding myself, but I can see the wisdom in it because just breathing through the mouth only really does sort of shift your way of being present in the moment, doesn't it?
Yes. And part of it is because people naturally breathe through the nose, it makes you focus your attention and be present. And it makes it easier when you're focused on a task for your mind to quiet down.
Yeah, that was really cool. I'll tell you just briefly what my experience was. I mean, obviously this is just a short session, so there weren't any mind-blowing fireworks, but I did feel a sense of maybe it was the rhythm of the music or whatever, but that I've been sort of feeling my age lately, and because of all the the pandemic and the death and the scariness that's going on in the world, I've been sort of feeling like I should start preparing for my own death lately. And the message that I was getting, whether it's from my ancestors, guides, whatever, my spirit peeps were telling me, you're nowhere near dead yet. You've got plenty of work to do. So wake up, girl. Is that a typical type of response?
Um, I would say there's nothing that's really typical. It just means that that's the message you needed in this moment. And that's what was brought up. So it's, yeah, there really is no typical experience as such like that. But I have seen things like that come up in breathwork sessions, yes.
Very, very interesting. Wow. Well, I want to make sure that I mention your website again for anybody who might have missed it. It's breathworkonline.com. And I'm paying attention to the time. I want to make sure that we don't run out. So is there anything that I've either forgotten to ask you or that's still, floating around in your head that you want to make sure that we talk about, or do you feel complete?
Just a couple of quick things. First of all, I just want to acknowledge the composer of the music we used. His name is Byron Metcalf. The tracks were called Encounter, A Healing the Earth Journey, and Earth Om Sacred Resonance. And he is an amazing composer in terms of music that can be used in breathwork. So if you want to check him out, he's awesome. And also, one of the important things to me is that I feel that everybody has a unique gift that they bring to the world. And it's based on your own experiences, the difficulties you've gone through, the strengths that you've gotten by processing through things and being able to get where you are today. And one of the wonderful things about breathwork is that, and as I said before, more than half the people on it that are breathe on a regular basis get more clarity in their purpose in life. And to me, that's like one of the most profound experiences. Like for me, in my breathwork sessions, I got really clear that one of my gifts in life which was partially genetic and which I could access after I did that work, was that I can create a space where people feel safe even in an online structure, in opening up and releasing. And I saw that, my mission in life is to do breath work and to bring breath work to it and this kind of healing and growth to whoever, wants to have it. And everybody has that inside of them. And I've just seen so many times in breath work where people start to get more clear on the gift that they can contribute to the world and what they uniquely have to bring that no one else can, and start to access that and work with it. So that's, to me, one of the most profound things that I've seen, and it just inspires me to continue and keep working to bring breathwork to more and more people, and to allow them to access those things, to access their own self-empowerment, their own inner wisdom, so they can feel more self-empowered and bring themselves to the world.
I love that your gift is the exact flip side of your biggest fear, that you did not feel safe. And now you realize that your gift is helping others to feel safe. I love that.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, thank you, Michael. This has been just a wonderful conversation, and I so appreciate the demonstration that you've offered. This has been really a very helpful session. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you, Lisa.
All right. I want to remind everyone I've been talking with Michael Stone. Thank everyone for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this conversation in the Ancestral Healing Summit.